Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Let's Hear It. Today's guest is Katie Jacoby. She's a fantastic violinist based in Brooklyn. She grew up in Delaware. She's played with everybody from Miley Cyrus to Dua Lipa to Roger Daltrey, which led to her featured violinist role on the latest tour with The Who and their orchestra. She should be on tour right now, but of course no one is on tour. She's also got a great new project called The Showdown Kids with Scott Metzger and Simon Kafka. And she is going to show us a beautiful violin that she has that we're not sure who made it, but she's going to tell us more about it. But we suspect that it's a copy of a violin that was made by a French luthier named Gabriel Didion. He made a bunch of violins in the late 1800s, and apparently they were so well thought of that they were copied by other luthiers. So let's say hello to Katie Jacoby and talk about this lovely violin she has. Hello, Katie.
Hi, Gary. How's it going?
Everything's good. How are you?
Hanging in there. Happy to connect with you today.
Yeah, you should be on tour somewhere right now, right? I wonder where you were supposed to be today.
Yeah, well, all spring we were supposed to be on the road with The Who, a month in the UK and Ireland, and then headlining at Jazz Fest, and several more weeks in the US, but sadly, none of that's happening, but getting to chill at home in Brooklyn, so having fun, making the most of it.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. So why don't you tell us about this violin and where you got it and what you love about it. I know you have a few other violins. I've seen you with amazing electric violin and a few others, but tell us about this one.
So I have several violins, but this one here is definitely my baby. This is like the desert island violin that's most important to me. And I feel like I should sort of preface our conversation by saying that I'm actually a little bit ashamed that I don't know more about how violins are made or more about this violin in particular. And it was actually the occasion of speaking with you that I did a little research and I learned a bunch. So thank you for that.
Good. Well, I think there's a lot of musicians, especially people who write songs or play instruments. You don't have to know everything about an instrument to enjoy it and love it. And of course, it is interesting if you start collecting them to learn details, specifics about them. But I love that you've had that. Is that the one that you've had since you were a child?
Yes. So we'll go back in time a little bit and go on a little journey with this. This violin used to belong to my aunt. It was purchased for her as a gift by my grandfather when she was about 11 or 12 years old, and she played this violin all through her youth and into adulthood until she got another violin. And I started violin at the age of 6, and when I was around 11 or 12, she gave me the gift of this instrument. So it's so special to me to have continue on the legacy of this violin and play something that was so close to her heart and now is with me, and we've been all over the world. This violin has a lot of passport stamps.
Yeah. Well, that's the one you usually play. So when I first met you 5 or 6 years ago, you're playing in a string quartet with A Great Big World, and I was working with them, and they played on the Today Show. So we were there very early in the morning, and I remember we were all very tired. Was that the violin that you use when you do those type of gigs?
This was that same violin, and I've got it outfitted with an LR Bags pickup here. It's connected to the bridge, and shout out to LR Bags. They've been very generous to me and been a part of their artist program for years. And it's a sensor that's attached to the bridge that still picks up all the subtleties, and it's so warm and resonant. And since I play with a lot of loud rock bands, I need something that can stand alongside Pete Townshend's very loud guitars. And whether it's for a television show or on stage at MSG with The Who, that pickup definitely does the job of amplifying the instrument.
Sweet. Well, let's hear what it sounds like. Play us a little piece.
While my violin gently weeps.
Beautiful. Hey, will you do me one other favor?
Sure.
I've heard you play some ripping heavy metal songs on violin. Give us a little sample.
All right. Um,
I know you'd like to be the violinist in Metallica at some point. Maybe somebody else. Who would be the ultimate?
playing violin with
Playing
someone?
rock violin. Who, if you were to play rock violin for anybody, who would it be?
I definitely crossed the Who thing off my bucket list. That was always one of my biggest dreams, so that's so surreal that that's happened. Metallica would be a great one, though.
Yeah. All right. So what? So obviously the connection with your aunt is something that you love. You've probably played many other violins, and you keep going back to that one, is my guess. And you're not like out there looking for a bunch of different violins. So that one satisfies everything you need for recording and playing gigs, right?
It really does. I love the higher strings are particularly bright, and they pack a real punch, which I love. And but the low end is also really warm, and violins are funny because they're pricier instruments. I do have a few violins, but it's not like a guitarist where it's like, this is my Strat, and here's my Telecaster, and here's my heavy metal stunt guitar. It would be rarer to have more options, and one day I'd love to grow the collection, but really been spending my whole life practically just getting to know the nuances of this instrument, and it almost becomes like an extension of your body, you know? I recently, while this violin was, it was getting a little work done by my luthier, Ron Fletcher in Yonkers. Another shout out to Ron. He's an amazing violin maker and takes such good care of my baby. And he loaned me one of the violins that he made, gorgeous instrument. But I was actually having a really hard time playing it, even though the tone was so beautiful, just because there was about a centimeter of difference in the body. This violin, I think, is a little bit bigger. And you really notice it when you spend your entire lifetime getting acquainted with an instrument. So violins are funny like that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great thing about instruments too. When you've had them that long and you're still discovering things about them, you're still discovering the best way to play it, or you know exactly where to go to get what you're looking for. And that's the great thing about having an instrument that long. And so, do you know anything about Gabriel Didion? Did you learn anything about who he was? And
So this violin, it's most likely that it is a copy of a violin made by Gabriel Didion, and we'll talk a little bit about him first. But French guy, I don't know, maybe it's Gabriel Didion. I don't know how he pronounced his name, but maybe that's what it was. But violins under this label were made in an area in France. I don't know if it was like a town or a commune, but it was called Mirecourt. And that area in France it became very respected for the output of violins that came from there. And I think they had kind of a workshop and a collective and a school. And something interesting about violins that Ron, my luthier, told me was that sometimes violins with a label inside, a violin with an incorrect label, just some label that says like, this is a Stradivarius. A violin with an incorrect label might be more appealing to violin dealers than a violin with no label at all. And that just kind of cracked me up, kind of like these fake handbags in Times Square, or it's like, is this a Gucci? Or it's like, but sometimes it was done for just kind of to pay homage to prior makers and just like honor a particular school, but sometimes a particular label was stuck in there just to try to sell an instrument. And so this violin does have the Gabriel Didion label, but it's a mystery. It perhaps is a copy of a Gabriel Didion instrument, or perhaps it's another violin altogether. So I think part of the mystery of that is very alluring to me, and I kind of like that.
so this is a copy of a Gabriel Didion violin. That's what the luthier detectives say. So do you think it was also made in France, or could it be made in America, Canada, or some other country? Any ideas?
Perhaps we'll never really know, but my luthier Ron did point out a couple details. This purfling, it's kind of this outline. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a very slim black outline around the edge of the violin. And he was saying how he felt that it was a bit exaggerated, which might be more indicative of it being an American instrument, because is that not the American way, to take one detail and just exaggerate it greatly? And also on the back, I think the front is spruce and the back is maple. This maple's there's some more stripy patterns in it, which might be more of an American wood, and perhaps it was imported to France. That could certainly be a possibility, but far more likely that it was made in America with the wood that they just got fresh. So
I love the story that you got it from your aunt, because I think that's such a beautiful thing about instruments that can be passed down in a family. And was your aunt a professional musician? Did she tour with that violin?
She was a professional violinist, and then she kind of veered off into the corporate realm of things. But she played this violin at Carnegie Hall, and when I played it at Carnegie Hall years later, it felt it eased my nerves a bit, just knowing like, okay, this violin's done it before, so it can help guide me. And my aunt Nancy, she played this instrument on tour in Europe and famously dropped it on the floor of the Notre Dame Cathedral moments before her big performance was slated to begin. So she had to run off stage and reattach the bridge, and it was a thing. I just think that's a hilarious story. And
well, hilarious for you to hear. Probably not so hilarious for her.
Nerve-wracking, but every musician kind of has these horror stories. A few months ago,
what's your horror story?
On tour with Roger Daltrey, the bridge actually broke on this violin, so I was unable to play it for that performance. But now my luthier Ron has outfitted me with a little violin jack so that I can repair the bridge on the go if necessary.
When you go on tour, do you bring multiple violins? So like if that's your main one, I would imagine that you're prepared in case something like that, the bridge popping off or some other mishap happens.
Better safe than sorry, and I always travel with a spare violin, also generously on loan from my aunt. It's her other violin. So gotta have a backup just in case, because you never know if you're gonna drop it, hopefully not, or if the bridge will have an incident.
Yeah. Well, and the bottom line is you love playing it, so
yes,
that's the best thing about it. Why don't you play us another little sample, and then we'll let you go back to your day.
Yeah. Well, here's the Let's Hear It theme.
You're gonna have to pay Jon Graboff a royalty for that, you know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the permission from him. So, well, thank you, Katie Jacoby. I hope to see you playing live music again soon with the Showdown Kids or with The Who or with any of the number of other people you play with. And look forward to seeing you again.
Can't wait for that, Gary. Thanks.
Well, thanks again to Katie Jacoby for that demonstration of her beautiful Gabriel Didion copy violin. And please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we have a Facebook page as well. And check back on Wednesday for the next episode of Let's Hear It. Thanks for watching.